Madam, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. Yes, I'm okay.
And who do we have the pleasure of speaking to this afternoon?
You have the pleasure of speaking to Veronica.
And who is Veronica?
I live in London. I was born in Ghana and I've been in the UK for 42 years, I think now.
Oh, you are a
43,
senior
43, 43
donatorist.
years.
Mm-hmm.
43 years, yeah. I've been, yeah, 43 years. Yeah.
Wow, 43 years. That time I was in school.
Okay. I
Wow,
was
that's
studying
a long
too.
time.
I came here and I came to the UK and I was studying. I did some studies.
Hmm.
So
I
I
thought I
did,
traveled a long time, but you are old bugger.
I am retired, if that's what
Okay,
you want to know. I have retired from work.
Sister Veronica. So tell us about your family. You got a husband? Do you have any kids?
I do have a husband. I've got a husband, British. I've got two children who are a boy, a man now, and my daughter. They're both working. My husband is still working. And I've got three grandchildren. The oldest
Wow.
is 3 years old, and the youngest is just a month old baby. Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations for being
Thank
a
you.
grandmother.
Thank you.
Wow. So, are you still working or you are retired?
I have retired. I used to work for local government. I used to do, in England, I used to work for children and families. So I did a lot of work with a lot of kids and their parents. It's actually supporting them really to access services and for them to realize their own potential as well. So there's been a lot of work going on in supporting families. Yeah. And I did that for 33 years. Well, not that particular
Oh,
job, but actually working in local government. I worked in local government for 33 years. And the majority of
wow.
that time was actually working on a program that was set by the government in those days to work with families. Yeah.
Wonderful. Nice one. So, tell us about where you came from. Are you originally from the UK or you came from somewhere?
Well, I actually I was born in Ghana and I worked in Ghana for a while. I was quite young. I mean, it's just, I didn't have that sort of education that most people would have had. I mean, I didn't go to secondary
Yeah.
school. So that's why when I came to the UK, when I met my husband, he was then a VSO. I had actually trained to be a stenographer, so I worked for the courts for a bit, not for long, because I
Mm-hmm.
was quite young then. And then I came to the UK, and then I kind of managed to work hard to go and do some GCSEs, and then did a degree, and then I did masters, and that's how it all kind of started for me. So I come from
Hmm.
the north.
Wow.
Yeah, from the
Yeah.
north. Mm.
Wonderful. Nice one. So, Sister Vero, what we are trying to do this afternoon, from here is afternoon, I know it's evening over there, is based on your background, as
Yeah,
our viewers have heard. I'm
yeah,
going to pick your brain so you
yeah.
share more or less what we do here in this podcast is to educate, is to influence the younger generation so they come out like the way we have come out. Because you can see that there's so many things going on around us, which is where, especially our background as Ghanaians, which is very, very disturbing. So that's the area that we're going to do. I'm going to pick your brain You're going to share your life experiences to help others. That's what we're going to do here. So my
Okay.
first question is, as a mother, tell us something about parenthood and the consequences of the cons and pros of parenthood, especially abroad.
Goodness, it is quite complicated and it is very challenging as a parent. I have to say, I was blessed actually with my children. I have with the two children that I have. One of them is a doctor, a medical doctor, a hematologist, and he really is working on cancer, and he's doing work around sickle cells as well. And I brought him up as I was brought up, not exactly in Ghana, but with values. My daughter, who is also works in the hospital, but she's a biomedical scientist, and she manages labs. So both of them, knowing what it was like when I arrived, there was a lot of racism. Going for jobs had been very difficult for me. And so right from the early stages, I wanted to bring my children up to be proud of who they are, who have got an African, but specifically Ghanaian background, to be proud of their heritage. And so I instilled in them the importance of education, but also of respect, respecting people regardless of who they are. And they were very strong values. And also, I had actually been working with, as I said to you, children, children and families where there's been lots of issues around kids actually not thriving because parents were struggling to bring these kids out, especially in an area where there's poverty. I mean, we talk about Africa being poor. Africa is not the only place that there's poverty. Poverty is found in many, many cities across the world and in many, many towns and communities across the world. But it's the type of poverty you need are relative. They're quite different for every area, country that you go to. And so the work for me had been actually bringing these, kind of helping these parents to bring up these children and giving them a good start in life, which is about giving them boundaries, teaching them again values, but having boundaries to try and help these kids to grow up, to respect, actually accept who they are, but also respect other people, and so that they are in turn respected. And it has been very difficult for those that are not white. If you're non-white, you are likely to face a lot of difficulties because of your skin color. So those kids especially needed a lot of
If I may cut in, Sister Vero, I want you to add your work experience as a social worker. What word should I use? Correlate it with parenting abroad, especially for the African migrants.
I think there's a big difference. When I was growing up in Ghana, it was okay to give me a smack when I misbehaved. It was acceptable.
Yeah.
It's never acceptable now, even in Ghana, to hit kids. But from when I grew up, I was terribly scared growing up at home because I knew that if I misbehaved, I would have been beaten up. And I was beaten up, and it was really terrible, because if you're not careful, you grow up not having you lose your, you kind of are scared. You don't have confidence in yourself because of what you have to go through. The beatings, usually, although our parents loved us, they were brought up in that way and they believed that that was the way to go. But in actual fact, as we grew up, we realized, or as I became an adult, I realized that it was more damaging to me. It really didn't help me. What it did, though, was that I had to work hard because I knew that if I didn't work hard, I wasn't going to, there was nobody who was going to help me to do that. So instead of beating my kids, I didn't do that. I actually had boundaries, which is in this country, in Europe, where
Mm.
you kind of say to the kid, this is what I expect you to do. And if you do that, you can then be given A or B. And you've got to be very strict. If you don't do that and waver, the kid will take advantage of that. Of course, kids need to be loved, real love. But loving kids doesn't mean that you spoil them. Occasionally, you give
Yeah.
them treats, but you need to teach them to value whatever they get. They need to know gratitude. They don't need to feel that they are entitled. Because if you actually, my experience is you actually bring up a child who feels that they are entitled. When they become teenagers, it becomes very difficult. It's challenging because they believe they can do whatever they want, and you have to allow them to get away with it. So for me, it's about starting right from the word go when you have a child to try and instill. But also, you have to be a role model to that child. You behave yourself so
Mm.
that kid can see you as somebody they aspire to. But if you're not, you're somebody who just gets drunk, you shout, you beat, any of those things doesn't help the kid because the kid watches you and wants to emulate you. So you need to be a good role model. The way you talk,
Wow.
the way you behave, actually, you have to be careful. Don't swear in front of kids. Don't slap, don't abuse anybody in front of kids. Because if you start abusing somebody in front of children, they watch you, they do the same thing. So we need to be very aware of how we behave when we are bringing up children. It's an important aspect of life.
Nice one. Nice one. Nice one. That's a very nice one. So I forgot. I mean, our country. There's always a Sankofa. If you go back, that's okay. I forgot to ask you about your extended family. Your mother, your father, your siblings. You have siblings alive. I forgot to ask you. I just remembered.
Yeah. I have, I think, oh my goodness, where do I start with my life? I was brought up in the barracks. My dad was a soldier. Yeah.
Mm.
And I was brought up in Burma camp to start with, in
Okay.
Accra. And then we moved on to the north. And my mom, we had 14 children.
Say
Yeah,
what?
14 pregnancies. Well, 14 pregnancies. And my
Wow.
mom ended up losing 4 children. And that was
Hmm.
tough. Some, I don't want to talk. It's very painful to talk about because some of the deaths
Yeah.
could have been avoided and they weren't.
If you don't want to, just don't go there. I just
Yeah,
want
I
to
wouldn't go
know
there because they're
about
very,
your
very
family. Yeah.
painful. Four
Okay.
children
So and I
died.
forgot to ask you too. Yeah, I forgot to ask you. Is your husband also a Ghanaian?
My husband is English and he
Okay.
is a doctor as well. He's a doctor. But
English. Is he black or white?
white, white.
Oh,
He's
okay.
English. He's white. I
All right.
met him in Accra and he was such a good man. And that's why I'm married now. I'm still married for 43 years, or with him for 43 years because
Say what?
yeah, we've been together for 43 years.
Congratulations. So I'm going to pick your brain on that area too. So my next question is what you just said. My questions come from what you say. So be
Yeah.
careful what you say. So how can you marry a man for 43 years? What is the secret?
I think, I don't think it's a secret. It's more about how, first of all, you have to love each other. It's important, but love can also wane. Remember that.
I want you to hit that place very well because that's the title of our podcast. What is
Yeah.
the secret of this long marriage of yours?
Yeah. It is because we respect each other. Of course, we do have our arguments. Everybody does. If you don't have an argument with your partner or with somebody you live with, you really do not understand each other. So it's okay as long as it doesn't go further than that. After that, you make up, and that's fine. And it's trusting each other. I trust my husband implicitly. Okay, I know he does a lot of traveling, and I know he loves me, he cares about me, and I do the same. I care about him. He thinks he wants me to do well in life, and I want him to do well in life. So, and we look out for each other every time, and we share whatever we do. We share. He knows how much I spend. I know how
I like
much.
that keyword you just used, share.
Yeah.
I want you to elaborate. What do you mean by you share?
So we don't, for us, what has always been important is that we do not hide anything from each other. So he knows how much money I have, although
Mm-hmm.
I do have something we agree for me to have privately. We kind of, and I know how much he spends. So we don't have that sort of, we don't hide those sorts of things. There is always, we are honest with each other. How I feel, if I feel terrible, I don't like what he does, I tell him in plain English that I do not like your behavior. And it's fine because I'm explaining it and
Mm-hmm.
expressing my feelings. And he does that. If he's unhappy about something, he says the same thing to me. And so when it comes to the children, if I'm chastising the children, he doesn't actually interrupt. He lets me get on with it. And when he's doing the same thing, I don't, because the children need to know that we support each other.
Yeah.
That's why the sharing comes in the parent and a parenting those kids, that even if I'm wrong, he would not chastise me in front of the kids. He will do
In
it
front of the kids.
later on. So we kind of share everything that we do. And I'm not saying everything is hunky dory. I mean, of course, we're human beings. There are times when we get things wrong, and in those times, we just need to be aware that we don't know it all. We have to learn from each other, and it's fine. And sometimes, we kind of have our arguments, and it's fine because that's how we learn from each other. That he doesn't like this, I don't like this, and then we actually then discuss how we can move forward. It really depends on, everybody's different, and it's how you work with your partner, your wife, as in partnership, and that is very important. So that's all I can say, because there may be more. People may have more about how they've managed to be together for so many years. But for me, I miss him whenever he's away. He misses me whenever I'm away. Although we're old now, we still care about each other, and we still look out for each other. And I think that for me, it's a blessing. It's not
Yeah, it
it's not
is.
me. It's actually God's gift, because I am very I believe in God so much that everything I do, which is good, is actually a blessing from God.
Wow. Nice one. Nice one. I'm not leaving this particular place. I want us to delve deep into the area that we are discussing now. Tell us about the journey of marrying your husband to date. Give us a picture of the journey when you saw him, what you guys went through up to now. The uphills, the mountains, the valleys, the stress, the disappointment. Give us some for others who are coming in, or others who are in to learn.
My marriage to my husband, it was different. I mean, I it's not always easy when you are in Ghana, for example. When I was in Ghana, for a black woman to go out with a white man, it used to be that you may be somebody who is promiscuous, but I was never like that. I met this guy who had
Yeah,
been to Oxford, had studied. Oxford is one of these universities in England which is really quite top. And he came to Ghana because he wanted to teach. And he was teaching
yeah.
as a VSO. And we happened to like each other. But he fell in love with me straight away. The moment he set eyes on me, he fell in love with me. And
Yeah.
I liked him. I thought he was a good man. I could see it from his eyes. And so we started kind of like writing to each other because he'd gone. When I saw him, he went on holiday, and then he came back. And for 2 years, I was. I mean, I lived about 500 miles away from where he lived because he was in the north, I was in the south, and he was always coming to the south of in
Yeah.
Ghana to see me, and we just continued like that. And then I went to meet his parents. So I went to meet his parents before we actually got married. And his parents, being Christians, were very welcoming because they actually live in an area in England where they never see a black face. So to see a black woman actually coming in and wanting, in some ways, going to marry their son was such a shock. But they, as God loving people, they were very nice to me and they could see that it was genuine. And so I married him and he was a student. He was in his first year as a medical student. So you can imagine we didn't have enough money. So we were struggling. But I
Yeah.
also,
Two young folks.
yeah, too young. I mean, green. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about England. I had no history in terms of the issues that Black people had in England at the time and continue to have even now. I didn't know. So that was a shock when I heard the word racism. I knew about apartheid in South Africa when I was in Ghana, but
Hmm.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
that time
anything
it was
about.
terrible. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. I didn't know anything about racism in Britain. So that was a shock when I came and realized that, you know, somebody like me, they didn't want to see me. And the thing was, I worked in the course. As I said to you, I was actually trained as a stenographer
Hmm.
before I came to England. And each time I went out to look for a job, they would give me an interview. As soon as I showed my face, they would tell me the job is gone. They say, sorry, but the job is gone. And I had several interviews because I was qualified to do it, to do the work. And even when they test me, they knew I could do it. But each time I was rejected and that was painful. And I would come home,
Nice
I would
one.
tell him, and he would be crying. Because he wasn't prepared for it. He didn't know this was going to happen to me. He was as green because when he was in Ghana, he
Yeah.
was loved in Ghana. People were kind to him, and so even today he loves Ghana. His work that he does now is in Africa, so he spends a lot of his time in Africa because he knows that the African people are very nice. They're welcoming, they're kind. Whereas here, they see your color first before they see you as a human being. My children are lucky because they don't go through it, but I also know that there is racism. But at the moment, because they actually know how to fight it, they are okay for now. I don't know how long that would last, but we're going to wait and see. But yes, so during all those times, we were kind of struggling. It was hard for us financially because I couldn't get a job. He didn't get enough money because he'd saved to do medicine and there wasn't enough money for
Hmm.
us. And I was looking to get a job so that we can help each other to pay for our, upkeep. And that was tough. But we were still together. I never complained about it. He never complained about it. We
Beautiful.
just we just
Yes.
did what we could to survive. And it was when he was
I'm
in
very
school.
proud. I'm very proud of you because if I'm a cutting, I mean, I'm very proud because, as you know, especially abroad, marriages doesn't last even for 10. If somebody stays with somebody for 10 years, then you have to give that person an applause.
Oh,
So congratulations. I'm very proud. And you are somebody who is a role model for those of us who have been married for a while, but now we're picking your brain on how to extend our marriages to the time of 43 years. It's not easy. I know because I've been in here for 22 years right now. So I know.
wow.
So
Congratulations.
when you were speaking, you said something about Christian.
Yeah.
So maybe I believe you are a Christian, right?
Yes, I am. I am.
Okay. So if you are a Christian, uh, now we are going to correlate. How does your religion got to do with your marriage? What role has
Goodness.
your religion played in your marriage, I should say?
Oh, it's played such a big part. I couldn't leave the house without asking God every day. For me, and I hope for people who are Christians and those that are not, I think you should find God because God is amazing. Where I am today, where
Amen.
my children are today, me and grandchildren, is God. And the thing about it is, you need to have a pure heart. You need to make sure that you treat people with respect. You love everybody regardless. You are a forgiving person. You don't take things to heart. Yes, sometimes it's hard to forgive, really hard to forgive people. But if you're able to do it, you would have peace. Because if you kind of hold on to grudges, you're envious, you are jealous, you believe that you can go to the occult to help you. None of these things would help you but God. God is kind. God only does good things. When bad things happen, it's not God. God will never do anything bad to you. God, that I know, is a loving God, is a kind God. If I fall on the ground, if anything hard happens to me, if anything nasty happens to me, I ask Him to help me. I never say, it's God's wish that I should be like this. God wants us all to be happy. And He, whatever happens, if you trust in Him all the time, He will be there for
Yes.
you. And I do not. Prayers are so important. You pray, you don't get whatever you want. Hey, wait. He's there. He's going to give you something better than what you're praying for. He hasn't forgotten you.
Wow.
He always remembers you. So for me, God is everything. When I'm sick,
It's
when I'm
everything.
happy, and I just thank Him for all the blessings that He's given me. He's always been there. When I look at my life, my journey, where things have been hard, where things have been good, He has always been there. The time when
Yeah.
I can't
Always
walk,
been there.
yeah, He's always been there. If I'm down and I'm thinking, that's it, that's my end, that's when He's picking me up. That's when He's picked me up and He's actually carrying me. So please, if you can, and I think you should, take God into your heart and be a good person. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not. He's a forgiving God and He wants us to forgive as well. We have to learn to forgive. We have to love Him and we have
See,
to give
I mean, if I may
everything
cut
to
this,
Him.
your telepathy is working right now because when you were speaking, I heard in my spirit about the word forgiveness, and you just used it. So that's where we're going to go next. When I was lying down yesterday night thinking about my interview with you, that is the word that was coming all night. He said, tell her to talk about forgiveness. Because forgiveness is something that is not that non-existent, especially those of us abroad, especially in our relationships, in our day-to-day errands. People don't forgive. People bear grudges. People bear bitterness. So talk to us about forgiveness. We are entering into a new year. We got 3 days more. And God willing, if, we're going to enter into a new year. Talk to us about forgiveness.
Forgiveness is not usually easy, okay? I'm not saying that you say to somebody, I've forgiven you, and that's it. It has to come deep from the heart, okay? And just because you've forgiven somebody doesn't mean that you are going to accept everything that they do. Because when they're doing things that are wrong, you don't accept something that you think is wrong. But because God tells us to love our neighbor, love God, love our neighbor, we should really be able to love them, but not the sin. They always say, love the person, but not the sin. And it's the same thing about forgiving somebody deeply. Because if you're able to do that, you find peace. And it's the peace that you have is the peace of God inside you. And you can fly, you can do anything. You would, the thing, one of the things, the reason why we're always ill, you have heart attacks, you have anxiety, is because we hold on to very, very painful things inside us. If we can actually just forget those, I'm not saying, when I say forget, I mean don't let it affect you in that way. Just let it go,
Yeah.
which is about forgiving, and you'll be fine. And it takes a long time. It's not something you can do in one day. You have to work on yourself. And in working on yourself, you ask God to help you to do it, because it is the best thing that you can do as a human being for yourself, because you would have so much peace. You would feel your heart would be full of love if you can do that. I have had to forgive, and I've had to forgive on something that not many people would ever forgive, I think. When there is murder involved of somebody you love, it's not
Mm-hmm.
something that is easy to forgive. But I found out that I was ill, was always feeling ill for so many years because I
Mm-hmm.
kept feeling that pain. But as soon as I started to forgive and to let go, I'd begun to have peace. And my relationship with God was even stronger because I relied on Him to do that. So it wasn't an easy thing because it took years to do that, but it's important to do that. And with your wife or your husband, that is so important. Forgiveness is so important. Whatever you have done or your wife has done, regardless of how painful it is, if you can forgive each other and start again, it helps. But if you hold it and you're fighting, it affects the children, it affects your health, it affects other extended families too, other families too. So it's important that when you forgive your husband for whatever they've done, no matter how bad it is, if you can, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying and if everybody can do it, I just think it's better, and it will give you that peace that you need. But it has to come from deep, deep inside. There is no point saying I forgive you and then you remember it every time you're thinking about it. When you forgive, you forgive. It's a clean slate. It's a new start.
Yeah. Wow. That's deep. That's very deep. That's very deep. That's very deep. Nice one. Nice one. So our next topic is about our children that we raise abroad. Recently, I think you heard what happened in the UK where you are, where this young man went stabbed the father and stabbed the mother and killed them, and for whatever reason. So I want you to, I want to pick your brain on that area too, and then tell us something about raising children abroad and the pros and cons. How are we going to handle our children so that they turn up good? Yes, I know about children that turn out good. If you look at the US here, a lot of the immigrant children are the best scientists, the best medical doctors, the best pharmacists. They are here. But on that side too, they are in a group where I can't even mention here on the podcast. So talk to us about our children, how to raise our children, so they turn up good.
It's not easy, but I think it's important that parents show real love for their children. Have time for your kids. Spend time with your children. Make sure that they feel that they are important to you. Ensure that, as I said before, with boundaries, but talk to them. It's important every time you talk to them. But also, if you want them to watch the telly, depending on the age they are at, set boundaries. Do not just let your kids watch telly all the time because you don't know what they're watching if you're not keeping an eye on what they're watching. Make sure that you're reading to your kids. You spend time together reading. It's not just watching the telly. Get books that you both love so you can read to them. You can get secondhand books. You don't have to buy new books. Actually, what kids need is time. It's your time. If you can find that time for them so you can do activities together, go out together and do things together. Yes, sometimes you work long hours and it's hard, but have the kids come first. Find space for them. It's not easy. But you need to do that and ensure that they are with other children who are serious if you can. When they go to school, they're out of your hands. So everything starts. You know, I used to
Yeah.
work with families. It's always from when they're pregnant to when the child is 5. And so we intervene to work with those families to help them to bring up those kids. And, you know, once you can do that with people where you're supporting them, because they needed support and we wanted to give those children
Yeah.
a good start in life. So we did a lot of work with those families to help them to bring up the kids in a positive ways. And when you actually, after many years, looking back, all of those kids who went through those programs are doing very well. So a child is usually brought up by the community, but communities today can be dangerous as well. So you cannot actually trust the communities in which you live. Some communities are good, some communities are not. But surround your children with positive people, people who are really good people who are God fearing and loving and kind. Make sure you've got people, good people around them, and ensure that you listen to your children. Listen is important. When kids are saying things, listen to them and try and understand where they're coming from. You may not be understanding where they're, the language and what is happening, but if you're open, they know they can come to you. They know that they're not scared of you. It helps. Just be open and let those kids have that opportunity to talk to you when they're worried about anything, and always support them as much as you can. It's not easy. There's no magic wand. It's actually how
Yeah.
you behave as a parent, and love is above everything else.
Wow. Nice one. Deep. So let's relate that to the schooling here abroad. You know, UK and US, there's a lot of similarities. You know, so tell us something about the schooling and peer pressure. I think it plays a role in the mental being of the kids. You know, that's what I'm looking at. So, I mean, you being an expert in, I mean, social services, I mean, let's delve deep into that area about peer pressure, schooling, and the consequences.
It's not an easy thing because every school has its problems. And the thing about schooling is that once a child leaves home, they want to be able to mix with others and be accepted as part of that.
Yep.
And there is a lot of
Hmm.
pressure on that kid to conform. And the thing I've said about actually educating the kid from home before they're 5, 6 is actually the values you have. If you've got strong values, I'm not saying that all the kids will have that will actually be okay, but there are certain kids, there'll be a lot of them, and I hope that the majority of kids who have had very strong values from home are able to make sure that they withstand that, because they know that when they come home, there is love at home, they've got parents at home. But if you don't have that, where they go to school and parents are not there when they need them, they can't talk to parents, they try to find friends. And sometimes they get the wrong friends as well. But
Yep.
then again, it's not always like that. It really depends on certain children. They may even have good parents at home, but they still go the wrong way. They follow the wrong path. And that can be difficult because as a parent, you've done all that you can for that child. You think you've given them all they need, but they actually go through the wrong path. And at that stage, you then need to change tact. You need to be there no matter what happens to that kid. You have to be there for that kid because what works is love. If the kid knows that you stand by them, you love them, you go through the pain that they're going with them. Because sometimes they get bullied. They get
Yeah.
bullied at school as well. And so when they get bullied, if they're able to tell you, you'll be able to stand up for them. And you have to deal with it. When they get bullied, don't brush it aside. Go to the school and talk to the teachers about it so that the child knows that if anything happens, the parents are going to be there. You will be there to support them. So there is it's quite, they're nuances, little things, but they add
Yeah.
up. They add up. It's just not one thing that works. several things, and
Yeah.
there are other things that would make it difficult. Even no matter how hard you work, sometimes you do have those um, things that catch you out, that you're not really ready for it, you're not prepared for it. You think you've done your best, but at the end of the day, when the kid is out of the house, it's difficult because they're out there, and you think you've prepared them to be able to be strong, but it can be difficult because they can be bullying, social media, they
Yeah.
listen to all of the. So you also have
Social
to
media.
negotiate. Exactly,
We're
social
going to
media.
come there.
Yeah, you need to have to negotiate that with them. You know, I mean, at the moment in the UK, I know that I'm a school governor, and I know that in the school that I'm in and other schools where I live, that people are taking phones away from the kids. So when they're in school, they just focus on schoolwork. When they go home, they get their phones and they go home. Because when they've got the phones in school, at break time, that's when the trouble starts. They're sending each other all sorts of things, you know, and so they're not even paying attention to studies. They've got their phones in the class and they kind of trying to take pictures of all sorts of things that are not nice. So it's a very big area of concern, social media for children.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this as a mother, you know, when I was at work, we didn't have to face that as much as today when I've retired. I'm retired now and things have changed so quickly, you know, but being a school governor, being able to pick up what is going on around certain schools in the UK at the moment.
Nice one. Nice one. Beautiful. This is Vero. I'm really picking up your brain, and the questions are just flowing in my mind. But our time is limited. So, because our time is very congested, I'm going to come to the next question. About our lifestyle abroad, what we eat, affecting our health. I don't know about UK, but US here, those of us who are in our 50s and 60s, if I begin to mention the names of the illnesses, you will open your mouth. It is terrible. Sickness all over the place. What has it got to do with it? Is it the food that we eat here? Is it our lifestyle? Is it the work home balance? What is it? I want to pick your brain on that area.
It's a difficult one, and I know for me personally, I do have problems with food in the UK. And it's because you kind of have allergies here, you have food intolerance here, and
Yeah.
you're kind of thinking, is it the chemicals that are being used in food? And if you're saying to yourself, well, let me go and, I'd like to buy food that is not, doesn't have any chemicals, that chemicals have not been used,
Hmm.
organic, they call them organic. I just don't believe everything is organic that they say is organic. It's hard. Um, but what I think personally is that we are
Hmm.
working under stressful conditions in the UK and in the US. Everybody is stressed out, and you pick food, you eat very quickly because you have to go back and work. You don't have enough sleep because you're worrying
Yep.
about what's going on
Hmm.
at work. So what was it I was trying to explain about stress, wasn't I?
Yeah, our lifestyle
Yeah,
giving us a lot of sicknesses and illness in this country,
yeah,
in
yeah,
abroad.
yeah. But also we live sedentary life. I think we need people drive a lot. We have in the UK it's easier to walk. I find that in America, depending on where you live, it's not that easy to walk because of your roads. You've got very busy roads. And so if you want to go out and walk, or I mean, you don't need money to go to get a healthier life, especially when it's walking. If you're walking, you do exercises, it helps because sometimes when you get back from work,
Okay, exercising.
yeah, it's walk, just walk. That you don't have to pay to do. Gym is money. You have to pay to go to the gym. So if you don't have that, you don't need to do that. But you can do a lot of walking. You can also check the kind of food you eat. Too much oil, fatty stuff in your food. You really have to trim that. Too much sugar, you've got to watch it. And too much food, eating more than your stomach can take. Because sometimes when you're
Yeah.
tired and depressed, you just eat without even thinking about it. So it's a big plate of food, you just eat it, you know. So I'm not trying to preach to anyone. I'm only just saying what I think, because if I eat too much, I love my food, I know that it's not going to be good for my stomach. So I have to be very careful. But also, we know that if you consume the wrong food, a lot of it, it gives you, you put on weight, you got obesity, it then turns into all sorts of other diseases that you've got. So it's really about how much you eat and what you eat is important. Even back in Ghana, you know, you have to be careful about what you eat. You have to
Yeah.
really wash the food you eat, because otherwise, again, you give yourself all sorts of problems in later life. So it's really about looking after yourself very well, regardless of how tough work is, how hard life is. Just get up and walk. Take an hour's walk every day, just for yourself. It helps you a lot if you
Wow.
can do that. I
Beautiful.
walk a lot.
Nice
I
one.
love it. Yeah.
Nice one. Nice one. We're rounding up. We're rounding up. So let's relate this issue about, I want you to cramp it up together: social media, family values.
Yeah.
Social media, family values. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The social media and our kids, even the grown-ups. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we are from a different generation, you know, and what we are seeing now, I personally blows my mind. They say it's Generation X, whatever they call it, I don't even know.
Gen X.
But
Yeah.
the social media, has it really affected our family values or not?
Oh, it has, because especially with teenagers, they get their ideas from social media, because they've got children of, you know, young people of the same age, the same generation, kind of discussing all sorts of things. And it's very, very difficult. It needs, I mean, there are talks about regulating it and making sure that the younger kids do not get involved or do not use it in a way that would affect them. You know, um, it's a hard one, because basically this has come at a time when I didn't have to worry about my kids. When I had my kids, they had their phones, but they didn't even use the phones as much as these days, that you have to carry phones wherever you go. But it needs discussion. I think what is important is, right from the beginning, you start to talk to your child about social media, about what the pitfalls, you know. If they want to learn something, go and do it with them. If a child comes in and said, "Oh, mom, I need to know something about what is going on in a different country," sit down with them and go through it with them. And sometimes you have to try, in doing that, you're educating them. You're educating them to use it properly. I'm not saying it's gonna work, but I think it's worth trying. It's actually sitting down with a kid right from the word go, before they get influenced by other people. You start talking about issues of social media, what can go in, what to avoid, you know, and that when they come up against something, they should discuss it with you, because you are interested, you want to know what's going on as well. It's always nice to say to your kid, "Oh my goodness, I'd love to know what kids are thinking of, what your friends are thinking of," so you can have exchange, but also have limits when they can use social media. Do not allow them to just use social media throughout the day. Have times when they can use it for an hour, and just say, "Actually, I think you've got schoolwork. You need to read, because I want you to make sure that you do well at school. I want you to enjoy going to school, because if you read and you're up to date with things, you're going to love school even more." So it's easy for me to say that, but children these days seem to actually thrive on that. That's what they want to do, but you can only talk to them. I really don't know what the answers are going to be. I don't know what the answers are. I know that in some countries like Australia, they are putting limits to how much social media kids can watch and what the contents are, because otherwise
Yeah.
you find kids really, and I'm sure they might do the same in Europe. I'm not sure, I don't know, but I have a feeling that lots of parents like you, myself, because I've got grandchildren, we're all worried about it because there is no regulation about certain ages. I mean, of course, they do say parental guidance. You have to guide the kids, you know,
Yeah.
onto what,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of um, stuff that you watch on social media or on television and stuff actually says you got parental guidance. But even that is not enough, you know. As a parent, you just have to be on your
It is not.
toes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not easy, and the kids are also under pressure to learn, because when they go to friends and the friends have been watching things and they're talking about it, your kid would not know anything about it, and they're standing there and they have no clue what their friends are talking about. So they feel they have to learn. They have to also learn about that. They have to watch that so they can talk to their friends. And I think the schools can also do something to help as well, because the schools can say, these are our guidelines. This is what we accept the kids to listen to watch. This is what we're teaching. We want the kids to actually learn about these things before coming to school. So the kids are actually
Yeah.
using social media in a very in a better way than using it to bully, because that's what they do, to bully other kids and make other kids' lives hell. You
Yeah.
know? So it's
Wow.
a difficult one. It's a difficult one.
That's very deep. Outstanding. I mean,
Difficult.
I wish we could talk all day, but I know you got something to do. We have to wrap up. So thank you very much, Zabaro. I mean, this is deep. We will come again. Very soon, I'll call you again, and we delve into other sectors where we're going to. I mean, I'm going to pick up your brain and help others. But I'm very happy that you accepted my invitation. You came on my podcast, and I pray that by the 60th year of your marriage, we will still be here. Then we do another one. But of course, we're doing once in a while. But I'm praying for the long marriage. For this marriage stuff that you brought, the next podcast I'm going to have with you, I'm going to delve deep about it. Because you know what I'm
Amen.
saying? It's marriage doesn't last abroad. It doesn't. I've been out there since I was 20. I was in my 20s and I'm in my 60s now. I know what I'm saying from experience. Marriage doesn't stay long abroad. So you are a role model for all of us. So next time we're going to delve deep about that area. Yeah, and thank you very much. So now what we do now is you're going to, if you have any social media handles, you're going to share to our viewers, and if you have any shout outs, the ball is in your court now. Just give some shout out, and if you have any social media handles, let us know.
Handouts, or what is it you wanted? Again, I'm not clear. You wanted.
So if you have any social media handles that you're going to share for the viewers, if somebody wants to send you a message for you to advise him or her about something. If not, just give a shout out. Let's say you want to greet family back home, your children, your husband. The ball is in your court.
Right. Yes. Just to say to you again, thank you for inviting me. I really wasn't, I didn't expect us to be able to have this time to talk the way we did. And I just say greetings to all those I know. Um, I've got a sister in the US. I hope she will listen to this. And I hope that the next time we come together, I don't know what I'll have. It depends on what topic it is. If I've got anything more to add, I will. I'm happy to do that. I don't know whether what I've said is going to be useful. I pray to God that whatever we've discussed is going to be useful to other people. Um, I'm not, I don't know it all. This is just my own experience. So I just hope that whatever I've shared today is going to be of use to other people.
A great resource. I'm telling you. Yes, it
Thank
is.
you. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Vero. God bless you. God bless my your husband and my kids. I'm
Would
very
you?
happy you came.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays to you. days. Hopefully, in 3 days' time, we're going to enter into the new year. We thank God for our lives. All I'm
Yes.
going to say to our viewers is that if you like what you have seen, subscribe and share. Go to Fifi Odum TV on YouTube, subscribe and share, because there's more coming. What we are doing here is not for any other thing but to help others, in their quest in life. We have been there, we are getting there, but especially for the younger folks, our children, our grandchildren. This posterity, this is going to be there forever. Even when Zebra is not there, anybody goes on YouTube, they're going to find it. So this is what we're doing. Subscribe, share to others. Go to Fifi Odum TV, YouTube, please subscribe and share. God bless you all. God bless you, Vero.
God
Talk
bless
to
you
you
too.
later.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.